Just a Monday morning recap. When I was talking about fractions, I would describe them as the inverse numbers, the backwards numbers for multiplication. And to remind you, all the great functions, all the great processes in maths have their backwards numbers. So plus has its opposite of minus. So times has its opposite of divide. So squaring has its opposite, which is of course square root. Sine, sine has arc sine, and so we can go on. A to the x exponential has log a of x. They are the backwards numbers. There's the backwards processes, but each one of those backwards processes is associated with a backwards number that will achieve the same but going forwards, which is harder to explain than to understand. If I go 3 minus 2, that's actually identical to 3 plus minus 2, because minus 2 is the backwards number. 3 divided by 2 is the same as 3 times a half. And so it goes on. The square, I actually can't do this. The square root of 4 is equal to 2, which is actually equal to the square root of 4 written as a surd, because we've given up even pretending that they're different by that point. Now, in terms of pluses and minuses, it's actually easy to understand what a minus is because we have a concept of debt. But what the backwards numbers, they start to really become important when you're timesing and dividing. Because if I say, what is 42 divided by 7, it's not really clear what that means. In fact, you will notice if you follow these that I don't use the division symbol. Not at all, really. I use the much older symbol that looks like that, because that's clear what it means. It's a fraction. But even if you think about division, what you're actually doing is something a bit odd. You're thinking, what number do I have to times 7 by to give me 6? And 7 by to give me 42. And that number is, of course, 6. But if you think of it as a fraction, 72 divided into 7 pieces, how many of the pieces? 6. It makes more sense. The fraction then makes more sense than the division. Bit of math trivia for you. When did the 4 rules came in? When I was a kid, Miss Guppy said there are 4 rules in maths, but she neglected to add there are only 4 rules because it was invented by some maths teacher in the beginning of the 19th century, because he had to have one for each of the apostles.